It's hotter than a tweaker's lighter out here. Well, folks, as you can see, I'm not in my normal surroundings. What even is normal anymore, anyway? Okay, that's fair. Anyhow, the Laka Laka Lounge and Liquor Locker has relocated to La La Land. Here's a fun fact for you, my loyal viewer. The Laka Laka Lounge is actually returning to its original location. That's right. The Laka Laka Lounge was actually established here in 2004 as the Laka Laka Lounge, Opium Den, and Tattoo Studio. Don't read too much into that name. Nobody was doing opium, to my knowledge. People were, however, getting tattooed. So we've come full circle. Full circle. Full circle. Full circle. Full circle. Currently, the new to you, old to me, old but new Laka Laka Lounge and Liquor Locker is still being reestablished. So we are doing this video in the confines of the new Paint Locker, my new creative workspace, which is also an actively inactive construction zone. So you'll have to excuse the lack of ambiance and the casual nature of this episode. But I felt compelled to let you know that no, I am not out at sea, I'm not dead or in jail or on the lam. And yes, Before the Mast will continue bringing you cocktails, both exotic and mundane, while providing a relaxingly exciting escape through storytelling. In other words, quality content. Yes, quality content. With that, let's head over to the Globe Bar, or a nip off the old bottle. Welcome all ye sailors and soldiers, veterans and civilians, upstanding citizens and downtrodden scum. Welcome to another recounting of the ridiculous farce that is my life. A new episode of Before the Mast. Today we're trying out a bourbon-based tiki drink called the Halekulani Cocktail. The recipe for which can be found in Smuggler's Cove. Exotic Cocktails, Rum, and the Cult of Tiki. By Martin Kate with Rebecca Kate. Let's build this shit. The Halekulani Cocktail traces its origins to the Halekulani Hotel in Hawaii, circa 1932. The bar was called the House with No Key. Why they would advertise that their liquor locker was unlocked is beyond me, but then I live with some special people. Kids! And I present to you the Halekulani Cocktail. Cheers. That's really kind of refreshing. It's like a whiskey sour, but a little more fruity. It's maybe between a whiskey sour and an overly sweet Mai Tai. It's tasty. Now you probably want to use a bourbon that's stronger. I'm using Jim Beam. Why? Because it's cheap and effective. If you want to go spend your money on some fancy shit, go ahead. Don't talk shit about my choices in bourbon. That is really good. Too many of these and you'll be giving the officer of the deck a finger. Cheers, assholes. Speaking of giving the finger, I once gave the finger, this one to be exact. Thankfully I had it returned. Well, it never fully parted company with my hand. Let me explain. No, I'll explain. Don't mess it up, you mushy mouth drunken degenerate. You're an asshole, you silver sack of shit. Anyway, there I was on Side Cleaners. You can hear more about the wonders of side cleaning back in episode 39. This time, I was on the starboard side of the ship, which was also the seaside. It was me and journalist third class Jones. Back when they had such things, they're all mass communication specialists or something spiffy like that now. We were on a barge tied up to the side of the ship. On the barge there was a man lift. So that we could get under the port troop walkway about 50 feet up. We would move the barge by untying the line aft and then heaving around on the forward line, essentially dragging the barge through the water. And once we had moved an entire barge length, what was the forward line would now be tied off aft, while the aft line would be brought forward and tied off there. This method worked like a drug dealer on payday. Yeah. Until it didn't. Well, we began to move the barge, but as soon as we untied the aft line, the sea, which up until this point had been nice and calm, became angry and agitated. The aft end of the barge began to blow out away from the ship, and Jones, who was up on the forward line, began to lose control. The barge was in danger of being blown into the bay, which at best would be very embarrassing, and at worst would be, well, it would be bad. I had to get the stern line reattached as soon as possible, but the stern line was a knotted mess from being taken down and just thrown on the deck in a hurry. Well, the barge was quickly blowing past the point where I could reach a bollard with the line, so I got an idea. Another brilliant moment. I picked up the knotted mess of line with my left hand, whipped out my bosun's knife with the other, a knife I had sharpened just the day before. I raised that knife above my head like Abraham, readying himself to sacrifice Isaac. I brought that knife down with force. I chopped through that line like it was made of paper. Unfortunately, the knife's inertia ensured that it would go right through my hand and my finger. But due to adrenaline, I hadn't noticed that quite yet. In the adrenaline of the moment, trying to save the barge from a watery grave, I hadn't realized that my finger had been sliced virtually all the way through. Well, as I worked this line, I flung blood everywhere. The deck of the barge and the side of the ship looked like a scene out of Forensic Files. Jones saw this and started yelling. "Oh shit, Burks! You're bleeding bad!" I looked down and I could see all the bone and tendon in my left ring finger barely clinging on. But Jones took off his shirt like some sort of superhero and wrapped it so that my finger would stop trying to secede from itself. PM2 Kaplan, on the other hand, who was our supervisor, was looking down on us from the starboard walkway. He was yelling at us with so many expletives it took a sailor to understand what he was saying. "Secure the fucking barge." I believe that's a direct translation into English. He yelled at us asking why we were having a moment when we should have been securing the barge. Well, after the barge was secured, he was still yelling. I took the shirt off my finger and yelled up to him, "I chopped my goddamn finger off!" "Bullshit! Secure the goddamn barge!" Ah, yes. Kaplan. He was an asshole. Nice guy, though. I'll have to tell you about that time that he dirty dicked the bosun's coffee on the bridge. That's another episode, though. Well, we got the barge secured, and once everything had died down, Kaplan called down to me. "All right, Burks, let me see it." "That's just a flesh wound." No, seriously, he said that. "Get back to work." I went back to work. 2 minutes later, I started climbing out of the man lift onto the ship. "Not that way, dumbass! Take a punt to the pier." Essentially, I had to take my torn off finger and get in the paint punt and row around the boat. If you don't know the wonders of the paint punt, go back and watch episode 39. You'll hear all about how I sank 8 of those barnacle-y bastards. Around this aircraft carrier using brooms, climb up a barnacle-encrusted tetanus shot waiting to happen, then use the ship's brow to get on board. Well, I did this. Salt water getting all up in my finger hole. I got to medical and they asked me how long ago this happened. I told them like 20 to 30 minutes ago. They started talking amongst themselves. The word amputate was thrown about very casually. Well, my finger hadn't been completely detached. It had been what they call in the medical field degloved. Oof. Well, thankfully, instead of amputating it, they sewed it back together. So well, in fact, that there's barely even a scar. Can't really feel anything in the tip of my finger anymore, though. And that, children, is the day I gave the Navy the finger. The moral of this story... that gets me every time. Well, I guess that would be know where your fingers are in relation to sharp objects at all times. And always fake down lines when you're not using them. Cheers, assholes. God, that's good.
What shall we do with the drunken sailor? What shall we do with the drunken sailor? What shall we do with the drunken sailor? Early in the morning, way hey and up she rises, way hey and up she rises, way hey and up she rises. Early in the morning, put him in the longboat until he's sober. Put him in the longboat until he's sober. Put him in the longboat until he's sober. Early in the morning, way hey and up she rises, way hey and up she rises. Rises early in the morning. Pull out the plug and wet him all over. Pull out the plug and wet him.
You're gonna have to pardon me. You're just gonna stare at my back while I make this today. Until I can figure something else out. I apologize if you can hear the dogs. I did it without carrying myself this time. This is good and it goes quick. I feel like I'm beating my way through the jungle here.